Chapter 3. Reinforcements have arrived. The vacancies have been filled, and the sacks of straw in the huts are already booked. Some of them are old hands, but there are 25 men of a later draft from the base. They are about 2 years younger than us. Crop nudges me. Seen the infants? I nod. We stick out our chests, shave in the open, shove our hands in our pockets, inspect the recruits, and feel ourselves Stone Age veterans. Kaczynski joins us. We stroll past the horse boxes and go over to the reinforcements who are already being issued with gas masks and coffee. Long time since you've had anything decent to eat, eh? Kat asks one of the youngsters. He grimaces. For breakfast, turnip bread, lunch, turnip stew, supper, turnip cutlets, and turnip salad. Kat gives a knowing whistle. Bread made of turnips? You've been in luck. It's nothing new for it to be made of sawdust. What do you say to haricot beans? Have some? The youngster turns red. You can't kid me. Kaczynski merely says, fetch your mess tin. We follow curiously. He takes us to a tub beside his straw sack. Sure enough, it is half full of beef and beans. Kaczynski plants himself in front of it like a general and says, sharp eyes and light fingers. That's what the Prussians say. We are surprised. Great guts, Kat. How'd you come by that? I ask him. Ginger was glad I took it. I gave him 3 pieces of parachute silk for it. Cold beans taste fine, too. Patronizingly, he gives the youngster a portion and says, next time you come with your mess tin, have a cigar or a chew of tobacco in your other hand. Get me? Then he turns to us. You get off scot-free, of course. We couldn't do without Kaczynski. He has a sixth sense. There are such people everywhere, but one does not appreciate it at first. Every company has one or two. Kaczynski is the smartest I know. By trade, he is a cobbler, I believe, but that hasn't anything to do with it. He understands all trades. It's a good thing to be friends with him, as Krop and I are, and Hai Westis too, more or less. Bahai is rather the executive arm, operating under Kat's orders when things come to blows. For that, he has his qualifications. For example, we land at night in some entirely unknown spot, a sorry hole that has been eaten out to the very walls. We are quartered in a small dark factory adapted to the purpose. There are beds in it, or rather bunks, a couple of wooden beams over which wire netting is stretched. Wire netting is hard. There's nothing to put on it. Our waterproof sheets are too thin. We use our blankets to cover ourselves. Kat looks at the place and then says to Hai Westis, come with me. They go off to explore. Half an hour later, they are back again with arms full of straw. Kat has found a horse box with straw in it. Now we might sleep if we weren't so terribly hungry. Krop asks an artilleryman who had been some time in this neighborhood, is there a canteen anywhere abouts? Is there a what? He laughs. There's nothing to be had here. You won't find so much as a crust of bread here. Aren't there any inhabitants here at all, then? He spits. Yes, a few, but they hang around the cookhouse and beg. That's a bad business. Then we'll have to pull in our belts and wait till all the rations come up in the morning. But I see Kat has put on his cap. Where to, Kat? I ask. Just explore the place a bit. He strolls off. The artilleryman grins scornfully. Go ahead and explore, but don't strain yourself in carrying what you find. Disappointed, we lie down and consider whether we couldn't have a go at the iron rations, but it's too risky, so we try to get a wink of sleep. Krop divides a cigarette and hands me half. Tieden gives an account of his national dish, broad beans and bacon. He despises it when not flavored with bog myrtle, and for God's sakes, let it all be cooked together, not the potatoes, the beans, and the bacon separately. Someone growls that he will pound Tieden into a bog myrtle if he doesn't shut up. Then all becomes quiet in the big room, only the candles flickering from the necks of a couple of bottles and the artillerymen spitting every now and then. We are just dozing off when the door opens and Kat appears. I think I must be dreaming. He has 2 loaves of bread under his arm and a blood-stained sandbag full of horse flesh in his hand. The artilleryman's pipe drops from his mouth. He feels the bread. Real bread? By God, and still hot too? Kat gives no explanation. He has the bread, the rest doesn't matter. I'm sure that if he were planted down in the middle of a desert, in half an hour he would have gathered together a supper of roast meat, dates, and wine. Cut some wood, he says curtly to Hai. Then he hauls out a frying pan from under his coat and a handful of salt as well as a lump of fat from his pocket. He has thought of everything. Hai makes a fire on the floor. It lights up the empty room of the factory. We climb out of bed. The artilleryman hesitates. He wonders whether to praise Kat and so perhaps gain a little for himself. But Kaczynski doesn't even see him. He might as well be thin air. He goes off cursing. Kat knows the way to roast horse flesh so that it's tender. It shouldn't be put straight into the pan. That makes it tough. It should be boiled, first in a little water. With our knives, we squat round in a circle and fill our bellies. That is Cat. If for 1 hour in a year something eatable were to be had in some place only, within that hour, as if moved by a vision, he would put on his cap, go out for a walk directly there, as though following a compass, and find it. He finds everything. If it is cold, a small stove and wood, hay and straw, a table and chairs, but above all, food. It is uncanny. One would think he conjured it out of the air. His masterpiece was 4 boxes of lobsters. Admittedly, we would rather have a good beefsteak. We have settled ourselves on the sunny side of the hut. There's a smell of tar, of summer, and of sweaty feet. Cat sits beside me. He likes to talk. Today we have done an hour's saluting drill because Tieden failed to salute a major smartly enough. Cat can't get it out of his head. You take it from me, we're losing the war because we can salute too well, he says. Crop stalks up, with his breeches rolled up and his feet bare. He lays out his wash socks to dry on the grass. Cat turns his eyes to heaven, lets off a mighty fart, and says meditatively, every little being must be heard as well as seen. The two begin to argue. At the same time, they lay a bottle of beer on the result of an air fight that's been going on above us. Kaczynski won't budge from the opinion, which as an old front hog, he rhymes, give them all the same grub and all the same pay, and the war would be over and done in a day. Krop, on the other hand, is a thinker. He proposes that a declaration of war should be a kind of a popular festival with entrance tickets and bands, like a bullfight. Then in the arena, the ministers and generals of the two countries, dressed in bathing drawers and armed with clubs, can have it out among themselves. Whoever survives, his country wins. That would be a much simpler and more just than this arrangement, where the wrong people do the fighting. The subject is dropped. Then the conversation turns to drill. A picture comes before me, burning midday in the barrack yard. The heat hangs over the square. The barracks are deserted. Everything sleeps. All one hears is the drummers practicing. They have installed themselves somewhere and practice brokenly, dully, monotonously. What a concord! Midday heat, barrack square, and drummers beating. The windows of the barracks are empty and dark. From some of them, trousers are hanging to dry. The rooms are cool, and one looks towards them longingly. Oh, dark, musty platoon huts, with iron bedsteads and checkered bedding, the lockers and the stools. Even you can become the object of desire. Out here you have a faint resemblance to home, your rooms, full of the smell of stale food, sleep, smoke, and clothes. Kaczynski paints it all in lively colors. What would we not give to be able to return to it, farther back than our thoughts dare not go? Those early morning hours of instruction. What are the parts of the 98 rifle? The midday hours of physical training. Pianist forward, by the right, quick march, report to the cookhouse for potato peeling. We indulge in reminiscence. Krop laughs suddenly and says, change at the Loan. That was our corporal's favorite game. Loan is a railway junction. In order that our fellows going on shouldn't get lost there, Himmelstoss used to practice to change in the barrack room. But to learn that the Loan, to reach the branch line, we must pass through a subway. The beds represented the subway, and each man stood at attention at the left side of his bed. Then came the command, change at the Loan. And like lightning, everyone scrambled under the bed to the opposite side. We practiced this for hours on end. Meanwhile, the German airplane has been shot down. Like a comet, it bursts into a streamer of smoke and falls headlong. Krop has lost the bottle of beer. Disgruntled, he counts out the money from his wallet. Surely Himmelstoss was a very different fellow as a postman, say I, after Albert's disappointment has subsided. And how does it come that he's such a bully as a drill sergeant? The question revives Krop, more particularly as he hears there's no more beer in the canteen. It's not only Himmelstoss, there are lots of them. As sure as they get a stripe or a star, they become different men, just as though they'd swallowed concrete. That's the uniform, I suggest. Roughly speaking, it is, says Cat, and prepares for a long speech, but the root of the matter lies somewhere. For instance, if you train a dog to eat potatoes, and then afterwards you put a piece of meat in front of him, he'll snap at it. It's his nature. If you give a man a little bit of authority, he behaves just the same way. He snaps at it too. The things are precisely the same. In himself, man is essentially a beast, only he butters it over like a slice of bread with a little decorum. The army is based on that. One man must always have power over the other. The mischief is merely each one that has too much power. A non-com can torment a private, a lieutenant a non-com, a captain a lieutenant until he goes mad. And because they know they can, they all soon acquire the habit more or less. Take a simple case. We are marching back from the parade ground dog-tired. Then comes the order to sing. We sing spiritlessly, for it is all we can do to trudge along with our rifles. At once, our company is turned about and has to do another hour's drill as punishment. On the march back, the order to sing is given again, and once more we start. Now, what's the use of all of that? It's simply that the company commander's head has been turned by having so much power, and no one blames him. On the contrary, he is praised for being strict. That, of course, is only a trifling instance, but it holds also in very different affairs. Now I ask you, let a man be whatever you like in peacetime. What occupation is there in which he can behave like that without getting a crack on the nose? He can only do that in the army. It goes to the heads of them all, you see. And the more insignificant a man has been in civil life, the worse it makes him. They say, of course, there must be discipline, ventures Crop meditatively. True, growls Cat, they always do, and it may be so. Still, it oughtn't to become an abuse. But you try to explain that to a blacksmith or a laborer or a workman. You try to make it clear to a peasant, and that's what most of them are here. All he sees is that he has been put through the mill and sent to the front, but he knows well enough what he must do and what not. It's simply amazing, I tell you, what the ordinary Tommy sticks it all up here in the front line. Simply amazing. No one protests. Everyone knows that a drill ceases only in the front line and begins again a few miles behind, with all the absurdities of saluting and parade. It is an iron law that a soldier must be employed under every circumstance. Here Tiaden comes up with a flushed face. He is so excited that he starts beaming with satisfaction. He stammers out, Himmelstoss is on his way. He's coming to the front.